Good afternoon, dear friends. I welcome one and all for Saturday's webinar session by Hello Kids. Today we are going to learn about is your child a looker, a listener, or a mover? To know more about this, we have our guest Kalyani Mehta. Welcome, ma'am. She is founder
Thank
of
you.
Paramash Counseling and Training Center. Kalyani ma'am has been motivated early years professional with a rich experience of heading preschools over 6 years. She has been conducting several teachers training and parenting workshops for renowned organizations under her counseling and training center, Paramash. She has also judged several competitions for preschoolers and been a guest speaker for some of leading institutions. It's a great pleasure to have you here, ma'am. Welcome to Hello Kids, and over to you, ma'am.
Thank you for such a lovely introduction, Mamta ma'am. So, can I share my screen? Shall we begin?
Yes, ma'am. Please go ahead.
Is the screen visible so that we can begin the session?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. So, today's webinar, as you all can clearly see, is about is your child a looker, a listener, or a mover? So, what exactly is this? So, a looker, listener, or mover are generally the learning styles of children. Today, we are going to consider the toddlers age group, like age group ranging from 2 years to 6 years per se. So, what happens is every child has a preferred learning style of their own. So, they adopt these learning styles generally from one or both the parents. So, what exactly are these learning styles? So, these are different approaches to learning, like visual, which means through seeing at things, through looking at things. Second is auditory, that is listener. Kids, generally, we hear parents saying, Ma'am, my child, God knows when he has listened to so and so thing and he remembers all the things. So his memory is very sharp. So this is where the listeners come into picture. And the third learning style is kinesthetic, which means that the kids learn by moving or by doing things. So we'll call them as movers for this particular session. So, how exactly do we find out if a child is a looker, a listener, or a mover? And why is it important for us as parents, as teachers, and as educators to know what is the learning style of the child? So, why is it important? Because, see, if at all I make a mover, a child with a mover learning style, a child with a kinesthetic learning style, sit down and look at videos, is the child going to be benefited? The child obviously will be bored. And if at all I make a looker sit down and listen to podcasts, is the child going to be happily learning? Is it going to be beneficial for the child? No, the child again will be bored. And then we all keep on saying that the child doesn't sit, the child doesn't listen, the child is not understanding whatever we are telling the child. Generally teachers have these problems. So, teachers and parents, I need all of you to please keep this thing in mind. If the child is not listening to you, it's not the child's fault. It's somewhere we are lacking in making the child listen to us. Somewhere we are lacking in telling the child according to his or her interest. If your child, if any child is not listening to you, it is not the child's fault. So it is we who need to change ways to make sure the child listens, the child understands what you're going to say. Okay. So now we'll go on to how to find out if a child is a looker, a listener, or a mover. So there are just a few tips and tricks that I'll share with you all today. So lookers generally, if they want to express themselves, they have a very small vocabulary. They use short sentences. So this is how we can recognize. If you go ahead with the listeners, what they will do is they'll generally have a very large vocabulary and generally they love to talk. The talkative ones mostly are the listeners. If you go ahead with the mover style, so these kids, they speak very little and they use a lot of non-verbal communication. Like they'll just do some gestures, they'll move their hands, they'll run around. So this is what do we say, this is what gives us an idea about the kids with a mover learning style or kids with a kinesthetic learning style. There's one more thing with which we can identify the learning style of children, which can be if they are around other people, like their social skills. Now, if at all there are looker children, they will generally be pulled away from being touched. Generally, if strangers come down, what do people do with these toddlers? They try to touch them, they try to hug them. So these lookers, they will be pulled away. They will use a lot of facial expressions to express themselves. As we have already seen that they have a very small vocabulary and very short sentences they use. But in whenever a stranger approaches, if at all they are exposed to a social environment, what they'll do, they'll pull back from being touched and they'll use facial expressions to communicate. Okay. Now, what will listeners do? Listeners will prefer talking rather than being touched. Okay. And they will change their volume and pitch according to their moods. So, this is what the listeners will do. What the movers will do, movers generally love hugs. They love being hugged, they love being rocked, and they are very well coordinated in any kind of a social setting. So these were the little tips and tricks with which we can understand a child's learning style. Is it a looker, a listener, or a mover? Going ahead, learning style, looker. So lookers learn through listening to things. They are able to recognize and recall. They reproduce whatever they see and develop the power of observation, concentration, and visualization. They are extremely good with sign language. Next is, a child with a looker learning style can benefit from which activities? First is puzzles. Puzzles can help a looker to further enhance their existing skills. Now, which existing skills? The skills to learn through looking at things. The skills to be able to recognize and recall. So, first one is puzzles. Next is shape sorting, which requires a child to insert a shape into a matching opening. Lookers benefit with the visual aids like puppets, flashcards, charts to connect with the learning in a better way. So, teachers, you all can please take note of these things. By using these type of games or teaching aids, the children with a looker learning style can be benefited. Next, home activities for lookers. So, what can parents do with this particular learning style children? Parents can encourage children to solve simple floor puzzles at home. As a child with looker learning style needs to see, and through this activity, they are able to see visuals and images. Now, what are simple floor puzzles? You can just take a simple chalk or maybe a duct tape, colorful duct tape, and you can make patterns on the floor and the child can walk through those patterns. You can make puzzles, the child can solve those puzzles. So this is how the child's brain, you can give stimulation to the child's brain. Next, we'll go ahead with the learning style of listener. So, a listener learns from sounds around them and they enjoy music as well. They notice sound effects in storytelling, rhymes, songs, and movies. They are able to follow spoken directions very well. So, what kind of games can you play with the listener style children? So they benefit from watching videos, voice modulation in storytelling, rhymes, and songs. Regularly narrating stories to a listener and encouraging them to ask more and more questions would be an amazing, amazing brain stimulator for these children. Also, you can make them listen to certain podcasts and make them draw listening to the podcast, for example. Or else even you all can just sit down with the child and talk to the child about something, and this will stimulate the child's brain, their imagination, and the child will be drawing whatever they are listening to. Home activity for listeners is a sound treasure hunt. So you can sit with your child near a window in your house and encourage your child to listen to different sounds that they can hear outside, like sounds of vehicles moving around, sound of the wind blowing, the birds chirping, people talking to each other, and so on. And then you can encourage your child to talk about these sounds to you. So even this can be a great activity. Also, I've explained one more activity, which is you can just sit down and start talking about certain things, and the child, you will not tell that thing. For example, a pen. So what will you do? You will just sit down with your child, give them a paper and a pencil or crayons, and then you'll start talking about this thing like a puzzle. So what you will do is you'll just tell them that this thing is used to write. This thing is blue in color. It generally is there in our stationery pouch. So the child will be listening to it. This will give a little stimulation to the child's brain, and the child will draw that particular thing. Next, moving ahead with the learning style of mover. So, these children can't sit still for a long time. They tend to fidget with something or the other. They understand information through tactile representation of the information. Movers are more connected to the sense of touch. A child with a mover learning style can benefit from role play activities. They help a mover child to learn better. You remember a lot of us used to play teacher when we were young. So this is an example, a classic example for the mover learning style of children. They can also take field trip because it reinforces the concept of learning in this learning style of children. Participating in their favorite sport, running, walking, going to a park, all these things give a proper stimulation to the children with a learning style of mover, or the kinesthetic learners as we call them. What are the home activities that you can do for the movers? First is a feely bag. So you can fill any non-transparent small bag like a cloth bag with different objects with different textures, like maybe cotton balls or spoon, wooden items, a squeaky toy, wool, sponges, anything of that sort. And then you can encourage your child to put his or her hand inside the bag, touch any object, describe it, and guess which object it is. Mover likes to do things by themselves. So these activities give them an opportunity to do so. Another activity that we can do with movers is make them involved in small and simple household chores. Like they can just fold their own napkins, they can help mothers giving certain things while the mother is working. Like, for example, if at all the mother is working on her laptop and she needs a glass of water, she can just ask the child to give her a glass. So these things you can anytime do with the movers. So now I would like y'all to ask questions if there are any about these learning styles. Uh, Ma'am, can we have some questions if anyone has? If you all have any questions, you can just write down in the comment section below. So, teachers and parents, it is very, very important for all of us to. Okay, there's a question. Actually, I think movers doesn't listen to the given command. They give excuses. No, not exactly. There are ways in which you can give them commands. Generally, giving commands is really not acceptable for toddlers. I'll just explain this with a little example. See, if you ask a child named Ron, for example, I will just take the name Ron. If you ask Ron to put the toys back at their own places, Ron is, if at all Ron has a mover learning style, Ron is never going to listen to you. As you properly mentioned, that movers do not listen. But instead, if you change the way of communicating with Ron, if you just say, Ron, these toys don't look good like this, no? Let us put them back at its place. You also have to go with Ron. You can just take one piece of toy, keep it at its place, and Ron will be clearing off all the things by himself. If you tell the movers that we will do it together, that will make a difference. And if you just tell the movers that you do this, that will not really work with the mover learning style of children. We have one more question. If the child go on crying, how can we control? See, if the child goes on crying, there might definitely be some or the other reason for that, right? So, for example, see, I will consider that maybe the child is going on crying in school. So, this is generally yeah, so this generally happens because of the separation anxiety that children have. They are completely in a new setting. They don't understand what is happening around them. The place is different. They don't see any familiar places, people around them. So that is what makes them cry, because that is the only thing by which they can tell that they are not happy. They need help. So in this case, what you do is you make sure that they are engaged in some interesting activities. A lot of preschools these days do this thing, that they allow parents as well to come to the school. Initially, for a week, the school is not run for the entire time schedule that it is supposed to run. They keep the time limit, they reduce the time limit, and they allow parents as well to be with the children to reduce this separation anxiety. So this is the way we can help crying children. Also, if any time, maybe generally at home or generally in the park, if the child is going on crying, what you can do is you can just be with the child. You can give the child a little water. You can keep on talking to the child as to what exactly is the issue. Why is the child crying? Try to find out what is the reason behind the child crying. And trust me, parents and teachers, the kids of 3 years and above, they will be telling you why they are crying. Just change the environment where they are. For example, if a child is crying, say in the classroom, you can take the child out of the classroom somewhere outdoors, sit with the child with a glass of water, allow the child to calm down, keep on talking to the child about things around the child. Ask the child what exactly is it that is bothering the child, and the child will definitely let you know. And in this way, we can help the child to control. We can control the child's crying. How to make movers to writing practice if they can't sit in one place. See, movers are, they cannot sit in one place for a long time. Okay, so this is there. They will sit, but they will not sit for a long time. So if they are movers and you want to make the movers write, instead of giving them a pen and a paper, better give them, make like introduce letters to them. I'll just take the example of letters as of now, that you want to make the child write letters. For example, letter A, what you can do is you can make the child write with his or her finger in the sand, or you can make the child make that particular letter with clay. So in this way, the concept, the understanding of how to write the letter A will be clear to a mover learning style child. And then you can just try to write with crayons or maybe with chalk on a board instead of a pen and a paper. Once the child will be understanding how to write a particular letter, then these mover children, they will finish off the writing soon. What to do if the child do not want to write at all on a slate or book? See, this generally happens according to the mood. It never happens that the child does not want to write at all. It may happen that the child does not want to write right now at this particular time. So you can gauge the child's mood and accordingly make them write. Once they know the concept of writing, the movers, you cannot accept like expect the movers to be writing 3 pages at once. They will never do it. They'll just write half a page, but they will write it correctly. My kid is a looker but not risk taker. How to improve his behavior? Ma'am, risk taking is not something that we encourage children to be learning at this particular age of 2 to 6 years. So, once the child is a little older, we can definitely think about their risk taking capabilities. How can we handle toddler hitting themselves just for making their demands complete? Okay, so now here, if a toddler is hitting himself or herself, what you can do is you can take the child out. As I already told you, if the child is crying uncontrollably, if the child is hitting themselves, if the child is throwing things around, what you can do, first and the most important thing is you need to be calm yourselves. Okay, first of all, the adult needs to be calm. The adult needs to take a little water, take the child out, change the environment. This is the second thing. First thing is be calm yourself. Second thing is take the child, change the environment, where the child is sitting, where the child is currently there. Then try to calm the child down. Talking to the children is very, very important. Generally, children throw things around, children hit themselves just to grab attention. So you need to explain them. You need to keep on talking to them so that these things can be controlled. How can control a child always? See again, a child, if the child is always shouting and making noise, this is just because the child needs the adult's attention. So make sure you're talking to the children. Whenever they have any questions to ask you, don't just shush them away. Try to listen to them. Try to answer them. If you just shush them away, they are definitely going to go either make noise, either going to shout, they are either going to throw things around them, or they are going to hit themselves just to get that attention from the adults around them. They are, see, if they are in some shopping mall and they are doing these things, you can any day take them out of the shopping mall. Just change the environment. It's not about in the classroom, outside the classroom, at home or outside home. Just change that particular place where the child is at that particular moment. How to improve a child's speech? By talking. Talk to your child as much as possible. Talk to the children. This is the one, what do we say, a tried and tested mantra for every toddler issues. You need to talk to them. You need to talk to them as if you actually want to listen to them. Generally what parents do, I have seen parents just talking 5 sentences like, don't do this, eat this, be fast, do this, that's it. Don't do this, don't do something, do it fast, no, yes, that's it. Make sure you're talking to children as if you're talking to a friend of yours. Like, obviously, you need to go down to the child's level, think that even you are of the same age and talk to them about things. Not want to eat rice bread, what to do? Again, ask the child why they don't want to eat it. A few children are fussy eaters. There are various tips and tricks that you can use. You can make the food colorful. If the food is colorful, children will be attracted to having it. For example, if your children do not eat salads, what you have to do is you have to make a plate which is something interesting. The child needs to feel that it is interesting. We have a lot of salad decoration videos on YouTube which are available. You can use that, make the plate look interesting, eat along with your child in front of your child. The child will definitely eat it. If you want that only the child to eat and you don't eat it at that particular time with the child will not understand. If you also take a similar plate, sit with the child, eat, and then ask, encourage your child to eat, definitely the children will at least give it a try. Parents and teachers always make sure you are talking to your children. Communication is the key with toddlers, which a lot of us fail to understand. Always talk to them. See, if the child is in the kitchen and they want to help, but as we all know, if while cooking something, if a toddler comes in, generally mothers don't like it, don't appreciate it. They just want the child to go out and do something or play with something and not be disturbing in the kitchen. Instead, what you can do is, just by telling the child, go out, I am just cooking, let me cook, please play with so and so thing, the child will feel left out. Consider yourself at the child's position. So instead, what you can do, you can just mix up some spoons and some bowls and plates, maybe give them to the child in the kitchen itself, and talk to the child as to, would you please help me in segregating these? Would you please keep all the spoons here, all the bowls here, and all the plates here, please, for me? That would be of great help. See, everything got mixed up. Please do help me. So, what will happen is the child will be busy while segregating or separating the items. It will give a good stimulation to the child's brain, and even you will be calmly cooking your food or doing whatever work you're doing. If the child wants to be involved in whatever you are doing, please involve the child. I guess that's it. Any other questions? Okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, all of you, for being a part of this. It was really great talking to all of you. I really had fun. A special thank you for Hello Kids to invite me for this webinar, and have a great day ahead. Enjoy parenting.